It's Spoilerin time, folks. This is where we take the hard work we do on our other show, Cordkillers, about how to watch things and talk about them. So we're going to talk about Lost in Space, the new Netflix series. We're going to talk about the return to season 3 of The Expanse. We're going to talk about the movie A Quiet Place. But we're going to start by introducing ourselves. Hi, I'm Tom Merritt. He's Brian Brushwood.
Okay, yeah, you said we would introduce ourselves, and then you go and introduce me. You're always doing that, Tom. I say let's jump right into the movie draft.
And by we, I meant me.
The royal me.
Yes, the royal me. Wow, movie draft. First of all, A Quiet Place almost beat Rampage in its second week. I mean, A Quiet Place was in its second week and Rampage was new. Rampage, 35 million, just barely edged out A Quiet Place, which now has 100 million, putting it on the heels of Ready Player One, which is starting to fade away already.
Yeah, so let me just say this. I only care about Rampage insofar as it was not a breakaway, one might say rampaging success for Team John Trekker. Right now, Team John Trekker is the only credible threat I see against Team Night Attack, the best team. Sure. But Cordkillers, congratulations for one of the best buys in the draft with The Quiet Place, although it still was expensive.
Well, if they had paid what they bid for it, it would be a great buy. But remember, they just spent the rest of their money because they knew they couldn't spend it on anything else.
Right.
So it's unfortunate that this should probably be the best buy in the draft, but it won't be.
Had it appeared earlier on in a more efficient market, because that's one of the natures of the games, right? Is like when everybody has money, it tends to be a more efficient market. But near the end, you only have like 3 or 4 players, and somebody has money and wants to just get it out of the system, so stuff gets artificially inflated or deflated. I'm feeling a little bit better about where we're at right now, but with Night Attack is in $209 million, Cordkillers has $100 million, John Trekker at $35 million, Team Chips Bitch with $19 million, DTNS and Tell It Anyway still waiting for their first movies. How big do you think Avengers Infinity War is going to be?
Ridiculously huge.
Are you bothered by reports that early testing has it underperforming what they had originally been tracking it at?
No, not at all.
Okay.
Because I'm not bothered for many reasons. One of which is people say that about everything all the time.
Sure.
And the culture now is let's tear apart a good thing before it's even got a chance to be born. So sometimes that ends up being true. Sometimes it's not. It's the stop clock is right twice a day. Not worried about that. The other reason I'm not worried about is I'm not going to win. So no amount of money Avengers can make, barring it like breaking records.
700, 800 million.
Dark Knight, Star Wars, Force Awakens money. So barring that, I don't think I can win this. And so I'm also not worried from that respect.
Yeah.
I will probably get my $85 worth. The reason I'm not going to win is because I didn't stick the landing. I didn't get the right other movie to kind of push me over the edge. My feeling is Avengers Infinity War is going to make bank. It's going to at least meet expectations simply because people are already selling out theaters and buying tickets in advance in a manner similar to Star Wars Force Awakens. Not quite at that level, but
sure.
I have never. There's no other movie besides Force Awakens that I was worried I wouldn't get to see at the time I wanted. And Avengers Infinity War is more like, you know what? I should probably buy my ticket or else I might not be able to see it Thursday. And I have to see it Thursday because I'm traveling on Friday.
Yep, I could see that. Interesting. You think it'll bust 700 million domestic?
By the end, I think it might touch it. It'll be over 600 for sure. I don't think it gets to 800. So, whether it actually touches 700 or not, 690 probably for sure.
Yeah. If it does do super well, I feel like almost certainly they're going to put some kind of connective tissue from Avengers into Ant-Man and the Wasp that will, I think think the more successful Infinity War is, the real beneficiary will be anybody who bought Ant-Man and the Wasp, which I believe is that a
tell it
Cordkillers?
anyway.
Team Tell It Anyway. Yeah.
Now that's in July, early July. Do you think that's enough time to start adding stuff to Wasp?
I think what they do. Here's what I suspect. Story happens. There's going to be like an after credits beat that will be directly tied into Ant-Man and the Wasp, and there'll be some question that gets answered, or it'll feel like a piece of that same story.
Yeah, because if they don't do that, I think they've already planned to do that, honestly. Because if they don't do that, I think people don't see Ant-Man and the Wasp because they're like, man, I spent all my energy on Avengers. I'm good. I don't need to see it. And they want to give people a reason to be like, oh, and now I'm going to have to see that.
Well, but also it sounds like what they're going for with Ant-Man and the Wasp is some lighter fare. You know, they're pitching it as an action-adventure romantic comedy. And I think that's exactly what everybody's going to want. Like, you know, I just want everyone to relax and have a good time.
Well,
maybe
Deadpool's
fall in
going to give you
love.
comedy too. So interesting.
Yeah.
This week, I Feel Pretty, Team John Trekker comes out. They spent $4 on it. That tells you everything you need to know. And Super Troopers 2, Chip's Bitch, comes out. They spent $8 on it. So it's all just waiting for Avengers Infinity War. I would expect another good week for Rampage and A Quiet Place, to be honest. Maybe even Blockers, which is at $37 million and is the best buy in the draft.
Surprised. I'm so surprised. I mean, I know it's not a good look for me to be complaining about how poor Blockers is performing when it was the best buy of the draft so far, but I really expected that to be closer to 70 million, given the all-star cast and the positive reviews.
Well, let's move on to A Quiet Place. And by that, I don't mean my study. I mean the movie A Quiet Place. Bryce and I saw it a few weeks ago, and we've had several conversations about, like, do you really need to be quiet? What was your experience in the quietness in the theater?
And where did you go see it first? An Alamo or at the not Alamo?
I went to Sky Cinemas.
Okay.
Definitely walked in, and trailers were playing, and there was no audio to the trailers. And I was like, wow, they're taking this very seriously.
Oh no.
And then the movie started, and there was no audio.
Really dedicated
to the movie.
This is a big buy, a big ad buy.
And the lights are still on, and people were talking around, and I thought to myself, okay, it's very clear there's a presentational problem, but I do know that the first 30 minutes nobody speaks anyway, so let me see how much of this I can enjoy. Like maybe it's so well told that it will survive even this disastrous presentational situation.
So wait, okay, yeah.
And after about 10 minutes, before, spoiler alert, the kid gets killed, they came out and somebody's like, we're gonna restart the movie. You can get passes at the end. Sorry. And then
it's good that they restarted it. I went and watched Game Night, and they had an audio issue, and they didn't give me a free pass or anything.
Oh, that's just ask for that. Yeah, they give that away like water.
Thing, though. Anyway.
Interesting. Okay, yeah. That's funny. Like Movie Pass, when you already feel like you're getting away with something.
Yeah, it's like
it's hard to watch.
Okay,
so then
they restarted the whole movie.
Then they restarted the whole movie, which means we watched the trailer and then we watched the opening to it. I thought it was fantastic. It's a big ask for us to swallow the fairly ridiculous conceit of the entire show, but they do a good enough job at a hardcore enough area. They do a good enough job of viscerally making you believe that this is what they do, is they get your gut to supersede your brain. My brain knows this is a dumb conceit and I don't believe it. My gut says, shut up, be quiet. It might get you. And I love that they were able to pull that off. I loved all, it's very hard to get my wife to go to anything that might be called a horror movie.
Oh, you took Bonnie.
Took Bonnie. Ooh. She loved it.
Oh, good.
It's like, and that moment that, you know, it goes to 1 year later and you figure out she's pregnant. I'm like, pregnant? Man, what's it like when aren't you loud when you have a baby?
Sometimes.
Aren't babies loud?
Yeah.
That moment when they put the oxygen on the baby and they lock the baby in a box, heartbreaking. I loved it. I thought it was great. As an exercise, as a directorial exercise, I thought it was fantastic. As a piece of writing, I thought it was fantastic. Yes, it's silly. Yes, it's outrageous. Yes, there's a million very good reasons to write it off as being, just an extended episode of Black Mirror. Don't care. Had a great time.
I mean, I don't think the conceit of unexplained alien can hear and kill you fast is necessarily silly. That's plausible. I mean, it's highly unlikely, but it's plausible. Like, all right, it could have really good hearing. Where it gets silly is in the execution, right? Because they set it up at the beginning as like, you make an unusual sound, it gets you in 10 seconds. Then they try to make you believe that a mattress over the top of a cellar is enough to protect you. And that's where your gut does have to override it. But I agree with you, Brian. Like, you don't care. You're like, yeah, I know that mattress probably wasn't going to protect him, but I'm definitely in. I'm definitely in because I want them to survive.
It was also a triumph of sound design. The way they, those moments when they take away room tone to put you in the world of the deaf daughter. And then you just hear a little bit of that high pitched whine. And then the moment it shifts perspective and you hear room tone, it was just like, oh, good. Like it was stifling. And to bring that experience at an aesthetic level, I thought was really, really well done.
The waterfall scene also worked for me because when they're talking, I felt like the kid. I was like, you need to shut up now, Dad.
Right.
Like, because I can hear you, they can hear you. And then they cut to a shot outside the waterfall and you're like, oh, I guess he's right. Like it would mask most of the sound from the outside.
The only part that did not work for me, and even then I forgave it, was the quicksand corn scene, right? I was like, okay, look, you're not on Flash Gordon world. Not everything sucks you down just because it's corn or whatever.
Have you ever been in one of those elevators? I have not, but I have heard stories that you can sink like that.
Sure. It was just a bit too overrepresented. You know what I mean? Like, yes, I'm aware that it's a real thing, but it was depicted in a little bit cartoonish manner that took me out of it.
Yeah.
Like, yes to the problem, yes to the reality of the danger, no to the extremity with which they represented it.
What did you guys think about the hearing aid sort of being the
MacGuffin? I don't know. And it's like that movie even ended. I liked the movie a lot in spite of the cartoonish, laugh-inducing ending.
Really?
I mean, like, let's go kick some butts, kids.
But
I definitely just pulled a baby out of my guts 20 minutes ago. I mean,
but I like that it doesn't. So what I really like about A Quiet Place is that it straddles the line between, okay, this is a hopeful movie, so there's going to be a good ending, and this is a brutal ending, and it's going to be a bad ending. And when it is not, when there's ambiguity there, then having an open-ended ending like that for me was really positive, because it's like, well, there's no way they can take on 10 of these things at once. It would be great to see them try, but I think that that's still a lot of the aliens. Like, I don't know that it's guaranteed that they're gonna win.
I totally read that ending as we have the MacGuffin, we figured it out, and whether it's us or someone else afterwards, you can't stop the signal, Mal. Chick, let's go.
I guess so, but I think that final fight solidified that as like that the hearing aid helps a lot, but you still need a significant amount of, you need firepower, you need some finesse
from the video game rules that were very clearly and obviously and repeatedly cut to on the dry erase board. It said totally invulnerable. Weakness ? And so what I took that to mean is like the reason that we weren't just nuking them from space or whatever is that they really were invulnerable except for when they're freaking out from that frequency of whatever it is.
Sure, but if you get 10 of them in one room,
I had a hard time swallowing that they were totally invulnerable until the hearing aid allowed you to shoot them. Like I will decide to buy that. Okay, I guess if they can hear anything, then a weird audio feedback might incapacitate them because they're, I'm not going to think about it too closely and have it fall apart.
And if I was being generous, I would say that it would, their doodle flaps that normally are chitinous armor instead relax and allow themselves to get shot by shotgun technology.
Well, and exactly, you kind of have to make a few more leaps for that to work. Whereas honestly, I think a better solution would have been like, the feedback is the one frequency that incapacitates and then kills them. Like I would have bought that more than the doodle flaps relax and they have to shoot them, right? But that's not as dramatic. You need to have the idea of like, just gave birth to a baby and now I got a gun. Let's go get him, right?
And again, did not mind it. Loved that. That's how good the movie is that I forgave that instantly. I was like, okay, hey, you win. Good, congrats.
Interesting. For me, it was not clear cut like that. I think there was still like an open-endedness to it.
Well, there were a whole lot more of those things running towards the house at the end than they ever implied existed. And so, I had to, in my head, go like, well, I guess as soon as they get close enough, it incapacitates them. So it doesn't matter how many there are. They just kind of walk through and pick them off.
Well, they, once they make it very clear that, like, they're broadcasting, and Gambling Man's right. Like, it's the same conceit as how they resolve Mars Attacks with the yodeling. Again, still okay with it, even though that was the case.
Yeah. The thing that threw me with that ending was more like, no one tried this?
Yeah,
it's been a year. They have daily, like New York.
Got to do a little bit of a little bit of forgiving.
I'll buy that. I'll buy that. The military did try this. They just never hit on that frequency because that frequency was a mistake. That was a broken.
Sure. Imagine in the book version, if Andrew Main wrote it, he would say the military tried this, but they never tried subharmonics in this frequency, and then we'd be like, well, that's why it didn't work before, and here we are.
Yeah. Sure, exactly. Did you have the experience? It's kind of messed up because of your audio issues, but did you have the experience where somebody made a crackle and you kind of jumped and were like, hey, be quiet?
This is what was okay. Here's what was really interesting is when there was when the audio was not running, socially, everybody felt fine talking and fussing and fidgeting and all that stuff.
There's no audio, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And
you said the lights were still on, which is a little bit
not that much.
Not the normal house lights,
right? Not full house lights. Okay. Like it was ambiguous. Like you're like, well, is this how it's meant to be or not? But then when they restarted it and those audio cues, everybody shut the hell up. Okay. It was really interesting what the difference. Watching the social dynamics. The exact same group of people watching the exact same opening with the audio and without the audio, it mattered to have that audio. And I definitely thought that opening scene with the kid dying was going to lose Bonnie. I was really proud that she stuck around and was into it. It was great. I liked it a lot.
Good.
That moment. Oh, I loved the fact that they foreshadowed the ending of the movie when you stumble across that vignette. Old woman has died. Old man has clearly lost his love. And you just see everything tense in his face and you know what he's about to do. And he lets go. And then that sets you up perfectly for down the road when Jim starts thinking of Pam and he's looking for a camera to look at and can't find one and then screams. It's great.
All right, let's move on to The Expanse, the return to season 3, kind of picking up where we left off, especially with Avasarala, because she's still on the abandoned ship that's being targeted for destruction. We get a little of the politics down on the ground where they're throwing Avasarala under the bus just in case she survives. Let's discredit her. And the Rocinante is sort of deciding what to do, and in the course of deciding what to do, decides not to be the Rocinante anymore.
Yeah, this felt to me like a strange angle to take on the first episode of a season of a thing. This felt like a mid-season reset or
Yeah.
But then again, we've already seen this show kind of break the rules. Middle of season 2 felt, you said was quite literally the climax of book 1. So I can't hold on to the expectation that this is going to follow the rules that we traditionally see with.
Yeah, we're kind of early on in book 2, but not at the beginning of book 2 right now.
Right. So if I'm going to put on my negative face, which looks just like my face, I'm going to say a lot of nothing happened. People who you thought were snakes turned out to be snakes. The only really standout great moment is I loved watching our Martian mistress walk around and be a badass.
Bobby Draper.
Yeah, there you go, Bobby Draper. That was great. I liked the political intrigue of to Fred Johnson saying, "Hey, U.S. has the nukes, Russia has the nukes. We're El Salvador. You tell me we shouldn't have the nuke as well. What are we gonna do?" And realizing like, well, we're kind of gonna get the proto molecule.
And they all very credibly turn against Naomi when she admits what she did, and in different ways, right? Amos feels betrayed because he always thinks Naomi makes the right calls, and he doesn't really think she made the right call here.
Right.
Alex just feels like, oh, well, great. Everything just keeps going wrong because that's kind of his means of doing things. And Holden is insulted because Holden is the guy who always does what's right, and Naomi didn't do what was right, and he's extremely disappointed in that. So we see Holden decide, you know what? The smart thing to do is to go back to Tycho, but guess what? It's not the right thing to do. The right thing to do is to help the biologist. So we're going there.
So forgive me, I don't recall what we saw on Venus. Did we get much of the story of what's happening there after?
On Venus, the most of the proto-molecule crashed.
Yeah.
Last season, they sent a kind of an expedition to descend into the cloud and kind of observe.
Yeah, everything got bisected and very organized explosions.
Right, and what we learned. I don't know if we knew it before. What we learned on this episode is at the time that they torched the proto-molecule people, that's what caused the kind of disassembly of the observation ship on Venus. That's what caused these spikes. And so the proto-molecule is very obviously connected no matter where it is in the solar system.
Right. Oh, okay. Got it. Yeah. Absent from this episode, it was a fine episode. It was a fine episode. Yeah. Welcome back. Good to see all of you characters again.
I said on Sword and Laser, I'm like, this episode just made me want to binge the whole season. I'm like, yeah, okay. Now get me to the next part of the story. It was
exactly like I thought. Where's the big story? This is all small story crap. And I mean, not crap. It's a fine show. Yeah. I'm glad it wasn't just me. And here's the crazy part. Last night, after finishing Lost in Space, I said, Bonnie, if you told me a year ago that I would watch the remake of Lost in Space and it would be better than The Expanse, I would not have believed you. And yet I think that's factually the case, is that the pilot episode of Lost in Space is a better episode than the third season premiere of The Expanse.
Yeah, because it's a little bit apples and oranges.
Of course.
But I think you're right.
Okay, good. Good.
And I don't think that's disrespecting The Expanse. This episode of The Expanse is doing something entirely different than what the pilot episode of Lost in Space is doing. And when Lost in Space gets to its third season, episode 1, maybe it won't be so good either. But
I'm marveling at the surprise that I'm feeling about how that went.
All right, well, let's move on to talk about Lost in Space. I believe this is the third version of this series. There was the original 1965 version that everybody knows with Danger Will Robinson and Robbie the Robot.
Yep.
There was some kind of 90s reboot.
1998, I remember, because I was working at Rockwell Semiconductors, and they were working on a Sabine sound card, and we all got matching shirts that said Lost in Sabine that had a UFO, and we all went and saw the movie together. It starred Joey from Friends. And it was not a bad movie up until that terrible CGI monkey character showed up.
Gotcha. So this
Gary Oldman.
is this is a more serious take on it. You know, like you said on the main show, the original one was like, hey, family in space, now buy our sponsors cornflakes. The movie was movie remake, nostalgia, weird, funny stuff. This is like, all right, what's important about Lost in Space? A family is trying to come together. They are on their own, cut off from support.
Fantastical spaces, set pieces, and fantastical set pieces.
Exactly, and they're in a totally unfamiliar situation. How do we do that in a way that's super compelling? And I think what they found was we make it so that you think they're Space Family Robinson when it turns out they are just like any other family with the same kinds of dysfunctions, and they're also trying to survive on a planet where they should probably die. So we're going to make it so they pretty much are doomed to all die until our Deus Ex robot comes into the situation.
And how much do I respect the fact that they withheld information? They did the hard thing. We still don't know what went wrong with the colony vessel. We don't know what the robot is. We don't know who the real Dr. Smith is or who this sham impersonator is. We don't know the real state of the relationship between the mom and the dad. We don't know what dark devil's bargain the mom made in order to get Will Robinson in there where he did not belong. We don't know what makes this planet so peculiar. I love that this whole series could take place entirely on some crazy sideways Secret Wars looking patchwork planet because they've already done that, right? It's like we have areas where they're like, it's going to drop to 60 below zero. And then, go down a tube, you pop out, you're like, well, it's kind of a temperate, Seattle climate down here. I love there's just enough of a nod to the science of everything. Everything from the nature of the
Magnesium.
There we go. Thank you. The magnesium, plus also the fact that the water is clearly super cooled and you're seeing nucleation happen at that moment of freezing. What a bold, claustrophobic opening vignette to have the whole series, to kick off the whole series. Love the fact that dad was deployed military all the time, couldn't talk about where he is. Kids are so smart that when he Skypes in, they figure out that he's outside. They were all great. Plus, I guess I love that actress, Alma, from Deadwood. She's amazing.
Alma, aka Jackie from House of Cards, aka now Mom on Lost.
She's great. She's great, and she's great in this.
I think this may be the best of the three things that I just mentioned that I've seen her in, because I see her in Deadwood and I still think a little bit, oh yeah, that's the woman who played Jackie. I see her in Lost in Space and she's the mom.
Yeah.
She is no one else. And it's really well done. The other thing that I enjoyed that they did was they played on your assumptions. And I don't think they're necessarily just the assumptions you make if you've seen Lost in Space before, which frankly, I've seen it. I don't remember much about it. I remember Dr. Smith was like, the pointy beard villain-ish guy, but was he villain or not? And there was Robbie the Robot. I don't remember much else about it. But even if you never saw that, oh, this is a family, right? They're playing cards together. They're stressed out because they're in a stressful situation, but they're together. And then they slowly reveal that all your assumptions are wrong. Well, mom and dad probably going to get a divorce. Well, Will Robinson, dad wasn't just trying to buck him up, because he's young. Dad was trying to buck him up because he's a failure. He's not supposed to be there. So when they send him off alone, the mom knows like, oh crap, no, you shouldn't rely on him. When the dad says, just like in training, oh right, but he actually failed that training. Like it's great at setting you up and you're like, okay, so I guess it's this, and then going, no, it's not. Also, the girl's frozen in the ice. Yeah, she's not going to be saved. She is going to freeze and die. And the only part that is in any way like a nod to storytelling is having the robot save them and then give them like, you know, a nice warm campfire to stand by. Otherwise, because if it's not that robot, they're all dead.
Yeah.
That robot design was dope. Having it split in two with the legs running around and the top being insectoid and looking menacing as hell. That transformation to a more approachable humanoid form and all that, whatever, like you feel that bond with Will Robinson and the robot. Like, look, we're both misfits. We both know we don't belong. I feel, you know, some connection between the two of us. I felt
saved my life.
Exactly, right? And here's the funny part is it never even occurred to me to watch this with the kids until after it was over, and I was chatting about it on Twitter, and so it was like, oh, you're watching it as a whole family? That's what we're doing. It's great. I was like, holy crap balls, we get to do that. Yep. So I made Josie watch it, and Penny's watching it as we record this right now.
Oh, great.
And I can't wait for us to watch it as a family.
Yeah. This would be a perfect family series.
Yeah,
like it's tense
not in a cheesy way, not in an overly heavy-handed way or any of that stuff.
Like it is it's an action show for the family, which especially with these Netflix things lean very heavy into being TVMA, mature, curse words and gore and stuff, where I think this is right on the line.
Well,
yeah.
and this isn't, you don't think, oh, this is for kids, right? Mm-hmm. Like it's serious, but there isn't swearing and there isn't gore, but you don't care. You don't go like, well, it's a little unrealistic. They've tidied this up. Like that girl's going to freeze to death in that pond. That is terrifying.
That's real dark stuff, right?
Yeah.
And it's like it doesn't feel trite or cliche or simplistic. It feels like there's real stakes and real interpersonal stakes as well, where it's like I believe that this marriage is hanging on by a thread. I believe that it's really awkward that the whole first episode we're very much not talking about that one of the children seems to be from a different parent, sure. and I that will come out in time, but it's questions are better than answers, and they did the hard thing of giving us so many questions in this first episode.
Mm-hmm. And for a family show, it doesn't set up a family where you're like, gosh, I wish we were like that family. It does the opposite. You still care about them, but you're like, man, I'm glad we're not that family.
Yeah.
But I think that, though, over time, those are the more successful family shows where we relate to their flaws rather than try to idolize them or become, long to be like them.
No, because you're rooting for them now. Instead of feeling like, oh, I don't measure up to Ozzy and Harriet or whatever, you're like, oh gosh, come on, you guys, you can fix this. You can pull together. Like, and that's a much more interesting position to be in as a viewer.
Yeah. Agreed.
Well, that is it for Spoilerin Time. Thanks, everybody, for joining us and supporting us on Patreon. Yes, we are not talking about Deadwood this week. Taking a break from that on hiatus. We will get back to watching Deadwood next week and find out.
Do you, since you watched this last episode, do you want us to plan to watch two of them back to back, and we'll talk about both?
Oh, sure. Yeah, no, we can do that to stay on schedule. So we'll do 2 episodes of Deadwood. If you're watching along with us and you watched one this week, keep watching. Watch the next one, and we'll watch 2 for next week. We'll see you then.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.